Vallabha Girivardha Hari Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jamuna Tira Vanasari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jai Gopi Ganavallabha Girivardha Hari Jai Gopi Ganavallabha Girivardha Hari Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Jai Radha Madhava Radha Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jai Mishupad Pramahamsa Pri Vrajka Saja Stotra Satya Sri Simati Divine Grace Srila Bhai Charanarvina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Sri Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrind ki, Skandibiti, Founder Acharyas, Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki, Samavata Bhakta Vrind ki, Harinam Sankirtan ki, Grantaraj Bhagavatam ki, Janitai Golda Pimanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Actually, we are meant to pay obeisances properly. Just like that is not paying obeisances. That is a standard that Prabhupada established. Which verse are we reading? Then you should choose one now. What was the last canto we were reading?
I'm reading 10th canto. I'll just say the chapter now.
Canto 10th, what chapter?
Just a second.
Uh-huh.
Just 1 second.
We were reading Krishna's daily activities.
No, that we finished. We finished the stealing of boys and calves. We were reading stealing of boys and calves right now. I think from text 41.
60th chapter.
Huh?
Chapter 60th. Chapter 60th. And text 38.
Chapter 15, text 38.
Yeah, chapter 60.
This is what you're reading currently.
Yes.
Srimad Bhagavatam, canto number 10, chapter 60, 60. Text 38. Tvam vai samasta purushartha maya phalatma yad vanchaya su matayo visrijanti krishnam tesham vibho samuchito bhavatah samajah pumsah striyash cha ratayo sukha dukkinor na. Tvam vai samasta purushartha maya phalatma yadvanchaya sumatayo visrijanti krishnam tesham vibho samuchito bhavato samajah Pumsa striyascha ratayo sukha dukkinor na. Tam vai samasta purusharthamaya phalatma yadvanchaya sumatayo visrijanti krishnam tesham vibho samuchito bhavato samajah Pumsa striyascha ratayo sukha dukkinor na. Tvam vai samasta purusharthamaya phalatma yadvanchaya sumatayo visrijanti Krishna tesham vibho samuchito bhavato samajah Pumsa striyascha ratayo sukadukkinorna. We'll go directly to the word for word. Tvam, you, vai, indeed, samasta, all, pumsa, our human life, artha, of the goals, maya, comprising, phala, of the ultimate goal, atma, the very self, yet, for whom, vanchaya, out of desire, sumatayaha, intelligent persons, visrijanti, discard, krishnam, everything, tesham, for them, vibho, O omnipotent one, samuchitaha, appropriate, bhavataha, your, samajaha, association, pumsaha, of a man, striyaha, and a woman, sha, and ratayoho, one who are attached to each other on in mutual lust, sukha dukkinoho, who experience material happiness and distress. Na, not. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. You are the embodiment of all human goals and are yourself the final aim of life. Desiring to attain you, O all-powerful Lord, intelligent persons abandon everything else. It is they who are worthy of your association, not men and women absorbed in the pleasure and grief resulting from their mutual lust. I kind of repeat after me. You are the embodiment of all human goals and are yourself the final aim of life. Desiring to attain you, O all-powerful Lord, intelligent persons abandon everything else. It is they who are worthy of your association, not men and women, absorbed in the pleasure and grief resulting from their mutual lust. Okay. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti. No, this is not by Prabhupada, I think. Purport to text 38 of chapter 60. Here, Queen Rukmini refutes Lord Krishna's statement in text 15. Yayor atma samam vittam janmai shabharya kritir bhavaha tayor vivaho maitricha notamadhamayo kvachit. Translation. A marriage and a friendship are proper between two people who are equal in terms of their wealth, birth, influence, physical appearance, and capacity for good progeny, but never between a superior and an inferior. End of quotation. In fact, only those who have given up all such material conceptions of sense gratification and have taken exclusively to the Lord's loving service can understand who their real friend and companion is, Lord Sri Krishna himself. So this is the conversation. We're just coming in this particular section of the Bhagavatam, which is being read here in the residence of Vasudama Prabhu. A conversation between Rukmini Devi and Krishna, which, of course, this is text number 38, so there's been various exchanges between Lord Krishna and Rukmini Devi. And just before this verse, maybe I'll just read a couple of verses to kind of situate ourselves here. I'm just going back here. Just we're going to read the verses, not the purports. Some of them are quite long. So from text 29, text 29, just the translation. The Supreme Lord said, O Vaidarbhi, do not be displeased with me. I know that you are fully devoted to me. I only spoke in jest, dear lady, because I wanted to hear what you would say. Text 30. I also wanted to see your face with lips trembling in loving anger. The reddish corners of your eyes throwing sidelong glances in the line of your beautiful eyebrows knit in a frown. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Text number 31. The greatest pleasure worldly householders can enjoy at home is to spend time joking with their beloved wives. My dear, timid, and temperamental one. Text number 32. Shukadeva Goswami said, O king, Queen Vaidarbhi was fully pacified by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and understood that his words had been spoken in jest. Thus she gave up her fear that her beloved would reject her. Text 33. Smiling bashfully as she cast charming, affectionate glances upon the face of the Lord, the best of males, Rukmini spoke the following, O descendant of Bharata. And text 34, therefore, begins the words spoken by Sri Rukmini. Sri Rukmini said, actually, what you have said is true, O lotus-eyed one. I am indeed unsuitable for the almighty personality of Godhead. What comparison is there between that Supreme Lord, who is master of the three primal deities and who delights in his own glory, and myself, a woman of mundane qualities, whose feet are grasped by fools? Text 35. You, my Lord Urukrama, you lay down within the ocean as if afraid of the material modes, and thus in pure consciousness you appear within the heart as the super soul. You're always battling against the foolish material senses, and indeed even your servants reject the privilege of royal dominion, which leads to the blindness of ignorance. Text 36. Your movements, inscrutable even for sages who relish the honey of your lotus feet, are certainly incomprehensible for human beings who behave like animals. And just as your activities are transcendental, O all-powerful Lord, so too are those of your followers. Text 37. You possess nothing because there is nothing beyond you. Even the great enjoyers of tribute, Brahma and other demigods, pay tribute to you. Those who are blinded by their wealth and absorbed in gratifying their senses do not recognize you in the form of death. But to the gods, the enjoyers of tribute, you are the most dear as they are to you. Long purport here, which we will not read. And today's text. You are the embodiment of all human goals and are yourself the final aim of life. Desiring to attain you, O all-powerful Lord, intelligent persons abandon everything else. Abandon everything else. It is they who are worthy of your association, not men and women absorbed in the pleasure and grief resulting from their mutual lust. Since it was a very short purport and quite a few devotees were not here, I'll just read that purport again here. Here, Queen Rukmini refutes Lord Krishna's statement in text 15, and I'll just read the translation. Marriage and friendship are proper between two people who are equal in terms of their wealth, birth, influence, physical appearance, and capacity for good progeny, but never between a superior and an inferior. In fact, end of the translation of the particular verse quoted, and the end of the purport here by those who are translating. In fact, only those who have given up all such material conceptions of sense gratification and have taken exclusively to the Lord's loving service can understand who their real friend and companion is, Lord Sri Krishna himself. So this is a series of conversations or exchanges between Queen Rukmini and Krishna. And what is being especially explained here is that when we have any other motive in material life, especially in householder life, other than the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then we will not attain what is meant to be the real goal of life, which is to serve the Supreme Lord. Here there's reference to mutual sense gratification. Most people actually get married to satisfy their respective desires, because most marriages are arranged on on a level of material goals or material objectives, whereas main contrast that we find, for example, in modern day society with Vedic norm or Vedic culture, marriages were arranged. Actual proper marriages are meant to be what is called arranged marriages. Modern day marriages are disarranged marriages. Disarranged means they are based on material calculations or material considerations, generally on bodily attraction. Prabhupada was having a discussion with one of his disciples, which in our modern context of so-called modern civilization will appear somewhat shocking. Srila Prabhupada was explaining how actually not that long ago here in India, marriage was actual marriage, and this is meant to be the standard and the norm. But we have deviated so far from that norm that we find it completely, for most people, definitely for the vast majority of people, even for most of our devotees, probably unacceptable. And I'm referring to what is called, Prabhupada would say that marriage is meant to be arranged before a young girl reaches the age of puberty. And that's why, even in Prabhupada's example, I think his wife was very young. And Prabhupada quotes how marriage actually was arranged, it's called child marriage, from the age of 10 to 12 for a young girl. And there's a whole psychology behind it, of course, which is, Prabhupada explains and talks about, that as soon as a young girl reaches the age of puberty, she will be looking for a young man. And therefore, to protect her and to avoid the type of very unhealthy relationships that exist in modern day society between male and females, between young men and young women. Marriage was prearranged based on especially material considerations. It's interesting here actually how Prabhupada is quoting that Rukmini Devi is defeating a previous argument. Normally, marriages are arranged on the qualifications, mutual qualifications of a boy and a girl. The more compatibility there is, the more chances that a marriage will succeed. But actually, above material compatibility is spiritual, the spiritual dimension, spiritual aspect. We see that sometimes among devotees who may not have been married based on what is generally the norm. You look at the horoscope of a young boy, of a young girl. So there are, the more compatibility there is, the more chances. But the real criteria for success in marriage is actually the spiritual advancement, the level of spiritual consciousness on the part of both the husband and the wife. And this is the point being made here in this verse, that people who are on the bodily platform, people who are being on the Bali platform means simply after sense gratification, then whether it is marriage or whether it is any other type of undertaking or activity will not be successful, because one is missing the actual goal or purpose of life, which is that of self-realization. In other words, the whole Vedic system, as we know, is arranged to help us understand this point, that of the 4 ashramas, 3 of those ashramas are completely and very clearly to put an end to sense gratification, isn't it? Beginning with Brahmacharya ashram. Brahmacharya ashram is especially emphasizing what is called celibacy or abstinence. Abstinence means of sense gratification, because we come to understand when we come in contact with these teachings of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, that it is activities of sense gratification which prevent us from actually developing our spiritual consciousness. It is attachment to bodily sense gratification activities that prevent us from actually advancing in Krishna consciousness. And therefore, of the 4 ashramas, 3 are based on no activities of sense gratification in the matter of sex life. There is a concession in householder life, a concession for what is called regulated sex life, regulated sense gratification. But ultimately within marriage life also, sex life is meant to be given up. Ultimately all types of activities of sense gratification. This is actually the heart or the essence of the science of bhakti or devotional service. Devotional service means coming to that understanding that actually there is no happiness in the material world. There's no happiness in any kind of material activities based on sense gratification. And therefore, those who are not having this understanding, those who are lacking in this knowledge that we call Krishna consciousness, are constantly, as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, mogasha mogakarmano moga jnana vichetasam rakshasim asurim achaiva mohinim prakritim sritaha. These are the 2 energies at play in the material world. In the spiritual world, things are simplified. There's only one energy, the Daivi Prakriti. In the material world, we have these 2 energies that we are constantly, those who are fortunate to come in contact with transcendental knowledge, come to know about this, the Daivi Prakriti. Otherwise, Hare Krishna. Otherwise, materialistic persons know nothing other than the Mohini Prakriti, which is the material energy, Bahir Anga Shakti. And therefore, living entities in the material world are constantly, if you need the chair, you can. as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, although we are the eternal part and parcel of Krishna, Mamai Vangsho Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, Mana Shastrani Indriyani Prakriti Stani Karshati. Karshati means hard struggle for existence. Everyone is struggling very, very hard with these two things, the mind and the senses. The senses are simply an extension of our mind. Material mind means material thinking, material feeling, material willing, or material desires. So we practice Krishna consciousness to gradually give up these material entanglements, and it is only possible to do that by taking to the spiritual process of bhakti or devotional service, where we engage our mind, our propensity for thinking, feeling, and willing in the service of Krishna. So that is why Prabhupada explains, we are establishing this society, we are opening temples, we are establishing communities to facilitate individuals, to facilitate one's advancement in spiritual life, without which life, I think it's mentioned here also, or maybe in one of the previous verses, in which life is simply animal life, isn't it? If we are not practicing spiritual life, then we are on the lower level of consciousness, which is animal consciousness. And therefore, one cannot be happy in that state or in that condition. I will read again the verse. I mentioned a little earlier that we're going to have a short class today, and the verse is from 10th Canto, chapter 60, which is entitled, I forgot to mention, Krishna Teases Rukmini. And the translation of the verse is as follows. This is actually Rukmini responding to Krishna after Krishna spoke to her in a manner that was very disturbing to Rukmini, but Krishna was just wanting to see her reaction. So she is responding, you are the embodiment of all human goals and are yourself the final aim of life. Desiring to attain you, O all-powerful Lord, intelligent persons abandon everything else. It is they who are worthy of your association, those who abandon everything to obtain the lotus feet of the Lord. It is they who are worthy of your association, not men and women absorbed in the pleasure and grief resulting from their mutual lust. Yeah. So since we have a few householders here today, and the subject matter is in regards to householder life, and of course this whole Leela of Krishna and Dwarka is in many ways meant for householders. So whether there's any...
I think this is already there in Krishna book, which we
in the Krishna book.
Yes. Conversation between Rukmini and Krishna. This pastime is taken from here.
Yeah, well, the Krishna book is taken from the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. Yeah, correct. Yeah. Prabhupada basically gave a summary of the 10th canto. The Krishna book is a summary of the 10th canto. we were making the point just a few days ago in discussing the instructions given in the seventh canto. In the seventh canto, Narada Muni instructs Yudhishthira Maharaj, who's a householder, about on the request of Yudhishthira Maharaj about dharma, and Narada Muni, who is celibate, begins by explaining that whatever I will speak to you about dharma. I mean, specifically, Yudhishthira Maharaj wanted to know about householder life, the duties and responsibilities of a householder. Actually, he wanted to know about the whole concept, ideology of Varnashrama Dharma. So he begins by explaining that I will speak on this subject matter as I have heard directly from the Lord. So that means that even someone who is not in householder life can understand about householder life by hearing from Krishna, who is an expert on householder life. He's he's the most expert personality, of course, on all subject matters, but especially when you have 16,108 queens, you are bound to know something about householder life. So any questions from our householders?
We have within our society, we have a lot of training programs for brahmacharis, even for sannyasis, those who are about to take sannyas.
Yes, yes.
But we do not have any, I don't think we have any specific training program for ministers. I mean, which is the most difficult thing to handle. We are simply just getting married, and it's like bringing two people together and drop them within the middle of the river.
Swaha.
And then
Good luck.
if it clicks, it's fine. Otherwise, it just and most time because of the Kali Yuga, it's very difficult to.
Yes. Householder life is most challenging, definitely. And therefore, one would think that there should be even more training and education to prepare individuals actually to enter. I mean, traditionally, that is there in Gurukula, especially. And it is there in the culture. As I mentioned, the whole arrangement for marriage was based on this natural psychology of boys and girls, and also for the overall good functioning of society. And I was searching just a few weeks back regarding what is called the topic of co-education, because I refer to that in the research I was doing on the topic of Vedic sociology. And most of us are, less aware that, for example, in the U.S. right now, there are only 3 men's colleges. There are 35 women's colleges. Men's colleges are, a thing of the past. But actually, about 100 years back, there were only men's colleges and only women's colleges. Means that the concept of co-education is a very recent concept and a very wrong concept as well. Prabhupada refers, as we all know, to modern education as sending young souls to the slaughterhouse of modern education, and therefore, in general society, most a vast majority of young men and young women are totally ill prepared for marriage. And within our own ISKCON devotee society, probably the majority are also maybe not as badly ill prepared, but definitely have not. We should have actually in Christianity, like in the Roman Catholic Church, they have courses before. I mean, they even announce in the church 1 year before they marry, such and such are engaged and whatnot. And so definitely, since it has such a very profound influence and effect on individuals who are meant to live together, if they are not properly trained and don't really understand the purpose of marriage, etc. Well, in the Western countries, like in the U.S. is always wanting to become number one. Well, they are number one in divorce and separation. I don't know what the present statistics, but it's well over 50%, maybe closer to 75%. And they say that the percentage of separation and divorce increases more and more as you the more often you again remarry, because in America people remarry twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and the percentage of breakup is even proportionately greater. So it is simply due to not having proper knowledge as to what life is really all about. And whenever that spiritual, it's like in the animal kingdom, the Prophet says, if you put a bunch of dogs together, don't expect them not to fight. They're going to bark at each other, and they're going to, yeah. So in a similar way, human society, which is devoid of basic knowledge, they will end up just quarreling and whatnot. And the situation in America is so bad that this was a couple of years ago. I can't imagine what it is now, but just a few years back, I believe over 50% of the children born in America don't know who their father is. It's called born out of wedlock, And of course, so the whole situation is marriage. The whole institution of marriage in the West is very severely challenged, practically destroyed, actually. And therefore, children who are born in that kind of environment naturally, from a very early age, are emotionally disturbed, and therefore, you combine together an emotionally disturbed male with an emotionally disturbed female, you get a emotionally disturbed situation. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, this is connected to Prabhu's question. So, what looking at the current situation in our devotee community, also there is no training for those stuff, or we have.
So you should write to your local GBC.
I mean, we have no proper training for Garbhadhana Samskara, or how to cultivate and nutrition.
Well, yes. So the idea is that anyone who comes in contact with the spiritual life, with these teachings of Vedic teachings, the more seriously we hear, the more attentively we hear, the more seriously we take up the practice, then we will be accordingly, more protected. Simultaneously, we can and should request those who are in positions of authority to actually introduce such type of, we give so many courses within our ISKCON society. we have brahmachari training. There should be, I think they've started, they have what is called, I forget the actual name, but they have couples, grihastas, who are helping others, and part of that is to introduce some pre-marriage training and education. But I think it's still.
It's not I'm aware of it, perhaps it's not officially or not given so much importance.
Yeah, right. So.
Like how it is given for brahmachari training.
Yeah.
It's
So
not,
householders should complain. I mean, should propose or suggest.
this is actually very, very important aspect of this one. I should take it up.
Absolutely, because for us as a society to actually have individuals, especially householders, come to the level that they're meant to come to, which means that actually successful marriages, unless we introduce and follow, practice the various what is called samskaras, beginning with garbhadhana samskara, then we cannot expect good results, within marriage and within our society in general. And I think one purport I was reading recently about, how it is this garbhadhana samskara is what we call Vedic family planning, not modern day family planning, which is which is a total deviation. Yeah. So yes, householder grihastha life is most important, because it is from grihasthas that we can get good brahmacharis, isn't it? I mean, good progeny, and it is only from responsible householders that we can expect people to actually go to the next stage and take vanaprastha and eventually sannyas for the men, isn't it? So if householders are not properly trained, then the end result will not be ideal. Yeah, definitely. So householders can, on their own, even though maybe at present it may be lacking institutionally, they can take some initiative, possibly. Those are householders who have children, keeping in mind that how we can help our children be more prepared possibly than we have been. They can do something in terms of having some discussions or gradually, with the help of possibly devotees within our society who are more Brahminical and who have more knowledge about these things, they can take guidance possibly from them and whatnot.
Like they have many ministries, something like deity worship ministry or other ministry. Do they have ministry even for brahmacharis or women?
I don't. There's a women's ministry. I don't think there's a brahmachari ministry.
They have so many brahmacharis.
There's a sannyas ministry.
Yeah, I mean, they have sannyas ministry, but they also have so many brahmacharis in the institution.
They have?
There are so many brahmacharis with them. They are supported by so many grihasthas, so they should have some kind of departments for them.
So you can discuss and bring it up. I don't.
If they are not, I mean, because they are using varnashram, so they are some.
Yeah. I would love to discuss more on the topic, but the time factor is not there, or the time factor rather is there. We have to, yeah. So thank you all very much for any. Yeah, there is. Asman. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. And Sam Prasadam is here.